Hello, Tracy here with another scrapbooking process video. This time I'm using the Saturday collection from Dear Lizzy, and I'm also going to be using a sketch from the Creative Scrappers Creating with Sketches Volume 2. So here I am just having a look at the paper. This is the Saturday collection from Dear Lizzy by American Crafts, and I'm starting off by just refamiliarizing myself with these papers. I chose this collection because of the beautiful, vibrant blues in it, and I'm looking for some of the softer colors. So you'll see that in my hand that the papers that are out of frame right now that are in my hand are the ones that I'm actually hanging on to use on this layout. And I'm just having one last look at the papers that I'm leaving behind. So I'm just going to put those back in their little folder. I have a video that explains how I have my paper stored in those folders if you want to check that out. Now I'm having a look at the embellishments that come with this collection, and so I have these chipboard stickers, I have some washi tape stickers, and a whole I think I might have all of the embellishments for this collection. And I did print up another copy of that photo because the one that I had a border on it, and the second photo doesn't have a border, so I mean like a printed border. So I did cut them both so that they had a border on the photo. So this is the sketch that I'm using. It is from page 36 of volume 2 of Creating with Sketches. I am using a sketch today. I don't usually use one. If I am using a sketch, you will see it because I always show it in my process videos. And so here I have laid out all of the paper that I might use, and I wanted to pick 3 main patterns because the way that the sketch goes, we kind of have like a grid of pattern paper, and then the photos sit on top of that. So I'm thinking about making my grid on a piece of cardstock or pattern paper of some sort. So I just was over in my paper storage area looking at what kind of cardstock I have, and I picked a couple of navy blues, but one of them was too bright, and so I went with a navy blue and a white, and I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to use them. I'm going to start by matting these photos on this piece of pattern paper from the collection. I love this paper. I especially love it for matting because it gives that nice bold navy blue matting, but just that little tiny added interest of the edges of the polka dots showing through. I really like that. So I've matted both of those photos, and now they're quite substantial. They've got quite a white border around them, and then also a navy blue, so there's lots of contrast. I'm cutting this piece of paper at 5 inches tall by, I think, 11 inches wide. And now this one I'm going to cut at, I think it was 5.5. Or actually, you know what? I think it was 6.5. And then this one I'm cutting at, I think, 5.5. And I'm going to have to cut it shorter again. The measurements don't really matter. It will depend on how you want your grid to be laid out. Basically, I wanted my bottom piece to be almost 6 by 12, but not quite, because I want to have some space around the edges of it. And then I wanted the 2 top ones to not be exact squares. So I didn't want them to be 3 by 6 and 3 by 6. I wanted them to be, one of them to be bigger than the other. So you could just kind of use your own judgment for getting the measurements. But the measurements that I used are for the arrow paper, it is 11 by 5. And then for the donut paper, it's 6.5 by 5.5. And then for the bird paper, it is 4.5 by 5.5. So if you'd like to use the exact same measurements that I'm using, that's what they are. And so I'm just kind of playing around with placement at this point and thinking about what size borders I want to have around those pieces of paper. I do plan to sew the papers down. So when I glue, I'm not gluing really close to the edges. I rarely glue close to the edges anyways because I like to have some loose edges so that I can stick things under for layers. On this kind of a layout, I don't plan to add layers under these papers, but I still moved the adhesive in towards the middle so that I could freely sew and not have to worry about getting my sewing machine too gummed up with adhesive. I do sew on adhesive when I have to, but I try to avoid it if I can. So I had cut that mat so that it wasn't quite even, so I'm just playing around with getting it even because that's always nice. There we go. That's a little bit better. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I wanted it a little bit more even than it was. So I'm thinking about placing these. I definitely want them so that the top photo spans, like interrupts that border that runs through the center of the page, that line that runs horizontally. And I'm thinking I'm going to want to put my title over to the side here. That is where it is on the sketch, which you can't see because it's kind of covered up by that sticker sheet right there, but there it is. So I do want to keep the title where it is on the sketch. And I'm thinking about using these two pieces here and layering them together to serve as a background for my title so that the letters of the title don't have to compete with the pattern paper below it. So for some reason, I don't know why I thought I wouldn't remember that, but I took a picture of it just to make sure that I didn't forget. So now here I am over at my sewing machine. You can see my luggage right behind me there. I still haven't put that away. So I have blue thread in my top bobbin, and then I have white thread in my bottom bobbin. And what I do when I sew in a straight line like this, sometimes I sew kind of scribbly sewing, but this time I wanted my sewing to be fairly neat. One thing that I find helpful is to not start at a corner. I think on your first instinct might be to start at a corner. I'm actually starting a little bit about a foot length in, so that the back of my presser foot is at the corner, but I'm actually starting sewing a little in from the corner. And that means that I can just kind of turn that last corner that I'm not at quite yet, but this next corner that's coming up, I can turn it cleanly by leaving my needle in the paper, flipping it around, and then I can go straight a little bit and line and have a bit of space for lining up where my thread that ends is going to line up with my thread that began the whole outline. Another thing that I do is I program my machine so that it's ending with the needle in, and that way I can just kind of press that. I just move the needle forward bit by bit at the very edge of a corner so that I don't accidentally go over and off onto the cardstock. I wanted all of my sewing to be on the pattern paper. So I'm just taking my scissors and I'm trimming those up. And by those I mean the loose threads. And now I have my We Are Memory Keepers tool. This is a brad tool, and I use it for a couple of different things. I use it when I staple in the middle of the page using the Tim Holtz Tiny Attacher, but I also use it for this. I use that kind of that flat edge of it just to pull up the edges of a piece of paper that's been sewn down, and I find that keeps me from getting paper cuts, and it's also a pretty smooth and fast way to pull up all the edges on, especially when you're using fairly heavy pattern paper or if you're using cardstock. I find that really thin pattern paper peels up quite easily to distress it on the edge of a sewed edge. But with this higher quality paper, you really need to kind of dig at it. And you'll see that for a while there, the tool wasn't all that helpful, but on some of the edges, I guess it kind of just depends at the angle that you hold it at. Like it's really faster to use the tool here, for example. It probably depends on a couple of different things, but I do like using this tool for distressing my edges, although that's not what it's actually intended for. So I'm just peeling up the edges of all of those sides that were sewn down. And now I'm just repositioning my photos and repositioning my journaling. I did flip the photos so that the darker one is on the top. I almost always make the darker one be on the bottom just for weight reasons so that the layout feels like it has some stability and some anchoring. I'm looking at the washi tape stickers and just at this point I'm just kind of thinking about what I have to work with. There's a rail pass there that I'm going to use for another layout because I have lots of train pictures from our recent trip. And I'm just looking at anything that might be appropriate to embellish this layout with, and I'm just pulling them out of the die cut pack that I have. I just keep the die cut pack inside of a Ziploc bag so that it all stays together until I'm ready to sort it by color when I'm finished using this collection. Having a look at the wood veneers for a second there, and now I'm just playing with the idea of maybe layering some of these pieces together to serve as that background for my title. I'm thinking maybe I might want more than just those two pieces together. I definitely want to use this camera, but I don't want it to sit by itself, so I put that pinked gold foil circle underneath of it as a bit of an anchoring element there. And I still have those two journaling cards laid out the way I had originally planned. I'm going to use pop dots. These are Stampin' Up! Dimensional adhesive to stick my photos down to the page. That will allow that edge where I've pulled up the edge to give it a little bit more texture. That will allow the photo to sit flat over top of that edge. And then I just lined up the second one so that it was flush with the first one. I guess I could have, I didn't know I was going to do this, but I could have matted them both on one single piece of the navy blue paper. That would have been fine. And now I'm kind of thinking, I'm thinking that what I have there is just, it's a little bit too boring. So I thought if I added this tag that has some gold foil on it and maybe this live free, and maybe move the camera over here, but then that's going to throw off the balance because I want to put some more embellishments up where that banner is, up in the top right hand corner. I don't want things in the top and the bottom right hand corner. I'd rather have things be a little bit more diagonal to one another. So if I move the camera in so that it's overlapped on the photo there, then there's a bit more of a diagonal line that runs from that camera up to the camera that's now up on the top, which is one of those clothespins that come with the collection. All this time I was trying to think about what my title will be, and I thought it would be Swimming at Sunset, but I didn't want to use black letter stickers, and I kind of didn't want to use any letter stickers, and I thought about die cutting my own letters using felt, and I was thinking I probably have some navy blue felt and that'll probably look quite nice. And then I saw this journaling card, or I guess it's like a filler card that says, "Oh baby, it's a wild ride." And this is not a layout about a ride. I feel like this title would be great for an amusement park or something like that. I actually have lots of photos of an amusement park, but I thought, as I hear that song in my head, I never think about rides. I think it's more symbolic. It's more about life being a wild ride. And so I thought it was okay that I don't use that I use it on this layout, even though this layout isn't about rides. So you see, I did a switcheroo there with the camera. I took the smaller rubber camera instead of the camera die cut piece, and I layered it with a puffy sticker. I had originally put a light blue puffy sticker flower, and then I switched it for a navy blue just to bring a hit of navy onto that camera. And I like how this is looking. The rubber just introduced another texture instead of layering paper on paper. I've got rubber on paper, and it's actually gold foiled paper, so it's even more different. And then I was just mindful of the fact that there's a lot of paper here together, so being able to switch up one element for rubber really makes a big difference, and then adding the puffy sticker adds even more difference. So again, I'm mindful of all the paper here, so I'm adding some twine. It gives me another opportunity to vary some of the textures. I'm creating a texture class right now, and so I have texture on the brain. I'm always thinking about texture these days. So I really like how this embellishment came together. It's sort of just all these layered die cut pieces from the collection pack, and I'm going to stick this little black scalloped border thing right in here, and I really like it. It looks quite nice. Now, I'm looking again at the washi stickers and thinking I'd like to use some washi stickers on this page. I never use those, and so I felt like I needed more non-paper elements, so I took another one of those rubber pieces from the collection, and I'm going to put it right there, just using Tombow Mono Multi adhesive to put those on. I haven't had any trouble with that yet. I've only been using rubber pieces for probably 6 months or so. So far, they've always stuck with Tombow Mono Multi, so I'm going to keep on using it. Now these are those little tags, the little chipboard tags. I am in love with these. I have no idea how to use them, but I'm absolutely in love with them. And I want to use the one with the number 7 on it just because I like the coloring of it. But I have no real reason to put a 7 on there. And I'm trying to be more flexible about those sorts of things and say, that's okay, just 7 is a cute looking number. But I felt like maybe both also from a design perspective, I thought it would be nice to put something weightier on top of it. And so I used that washi tape there. I took it off for a little bit and thought about doing something different. Really do not want to introduce black, so that's not going to work. In fact, all of those stickers won't work because they're all black. But this one says, "This was the best ever." And I thought I could use the washi tape to stick it down. And then also I added a couple staples there of my tiny attacher, more for design than for attaching purposes, because the washi tape holds that down perfectly. And you can see that there is a number 7 on that tag, but I'm just taking some pictures of my cat because she's being so cute. But yeah, so you can see that the number 7 is under there, but the phrase in the background, that red background on the washi tape is bold enough that it doesn't glare at you that there's a 7 there. And I'm actually going to leave the number 9 up here on the top. So I'm bringing some elements up here. I have a piece of rubber up here that was important to me. I wanted a camera up here, and so I have that clothespin that I'm not entirely sure if it might be a little bit too... My cat was scratching at me, so I just gave her a little squirt so that she'd stop it. Trying to have her associate unpleasant things with clawing human skin. That's my goal, is to really reinforce that pairing for her, that association. Right, so now that this embellishment cluster is all connected to itself, I'm just going to attach it to the layout using my scrapbooking adhesive, my tape runner, and then I just added a couple of dimensional adhesive pieces from Stampin' Up, and I just put them under to hold the space just to keep it so that it looks like it's peeling up off the page on the edges, and I didn't actually adhere any of those adhesive, those foam adhesive down at all. So now at the last minute, I decided to add this happy tag to this cluster up here. And the reason I added it was to provide myself with a little bit of space for journaling. And you can't really see the word happy, yet I think that you can tell that that's what it says just by the H and the A. So isn't that funny how that's the case? It doesn't really matter what it says. I like it more for the graphic appeal of the letters in the gold foil. The journaling says, let me just grab it here so you see me just adhering it all. It just says, "Swimming at sunset after a day of sailing. Soph, Liv, and Lorelei enjoy the cottage life." We were at Lorelei's family cottage and we went sailing and it was really fun, and I loved these pictures of sunset with the kids. You can see the P there, so I guess that's why you can tell that it's happy. Anyhow, I like how it looks. I layered the rubber piece that says love over that banner with the gold foil, and now I'm just experimenting with what kind of a background. This is just too plain. It's just too plain. So I'm at my paper, well, I guess I'm playing with my cat. Oh no, I'm keeping her from eating my thickers. That's what I'm doing. And then after I get rid of her, I'm going to go over to my paper and I'm looking in my ledger and wood grain category of paper. I keep those together. And I grabbed this grid paper from the Scraptastic Kit Club. It's just a very soft, mint green color, and it is very similar to it's actually exactly the same as the mint green that's in this collection, so it picks up on it quite nicely. I'm going to use it for my background. First, I'm going to remove the manufacturer's strip, and I did separate that clothespin so that it is only half as wide as it was before. And I'm using 3 long strips of adhesive from my tape runner there. And now I have this clothespin. I always call them paper clips. I have a clothespin cut in half. I removed half of it. I didn't cut it in half. I just pulled it apart. And I left the metal on it. And you see I've got a horrible sunburn on my face there. I don't know if you saw that. But that's what I'm dealing with today. So now I'm going to show you just the close-ups of this one. I really love how it turned out. This little casual cluster of embellishments here is just very pretty, and I love the colors in this collection. I love the designs, and this kind of a sketch, this kind of a layout really allows you to take a couple of key patterns from a collection and really highlight them, because you'll notice that there's good chunks of all 3 of those pattern papers, the arrows, the birds, and the donuts. There's good chunks of all of them that are showing, and that's what I really wanted to accomplish with this layout. I just wanted to be able to enjoy some of the patterns that come in this collection. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of definition to this cluster because I felt like it was sort of getting lost on the pattern paper behind it. So I'm just taking my Faber-Castell Pitt pen in, I think it's in fine. It comes in a variety of different widths, and look at how slow I go. See, this is my turtle scrapbooking. And I just added a bit of definition on the edges of those rectangular pieces. I didn't outline everything. I just wanted to add a bit, just a teensy bit of definition so that that embellishment cluster didn't get completely lost in those really bold arrows that are behind it. So I like that. I think that just adds a little bit of extra oomph to that cluster. I didn't feel like the other cluster really needed it, so I didn't do it for the other one. I am doing one more thing, and I'm leaving you on regular speed. I think I might speed you up. There we go, just a little bit faster. Yeah, so I felt like it needed a little something else, not ink splatters. I didn't want something unstructured. This layout is quite structured with the exception of the layered embellishments. And so I wanted to kind of emphasize the structure that's going on here. So I didn't really want to have a splattering of messy ink splatters. So instead, I thought I would add some enamel dots, and I didn't have the right color of blue, but I do have this navy blue Nuvo drop. And so I went ahead and just squeezed out a couple of enamel dots. They're not real enamel dots, they're Nuvo drops. They're crystal drops by Nuvo, and I really like them. They form really hard, for me anyways, really hard plastic-like enamel dot-esque little dots. I know that some people have trouble, or I've heard at least that some people have trouble with them drying. I don't. They seem to dry well for me, and I live in a fairly humid environment. So anyhow, this is what they look like. They form these perfect little circles. They have a leveling agent in them that makes them form perfect circles, and they're really, really beautiful. So here are the close-ups of this one. Leave me a comment if you have anything to say about this one. I really love hearing from you guys. And these photos were edited with Snapseed, and I used a vintage photo filter on them. And I'm about to edit a video that talks about how I use Snapseed to edit photos. And so if you're interested in that, have a look on my channel. It should be one of the next videos up. Take care and have a really great scrappy week.